Hello, Earthlings. How you doing? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Got a bunch of news and information for you, as always. So let's jump into the cosmic weather for today. Starting off at spaceweather.com. Solar wind, 471.3 kilometers per second. Planetary K-index is up to a 3 today, which is still in the quiet range. Remember, this scale only goes up to a 9, so we're 1/3 of the way there. The chance for a geomagnetic storm is very minor, 5% in mid-latitudes, same in higher latitudes, and the chance for an M-class flare is about 30% today. We can take a look at further what's going on. Said there's a full moon tonight. According to folklore, it's the snow moon, named by Native Americans after the heavy snows in February. In North America, snow has been in short supply, but the white tide is turning in Europe as winter snows sweep across the continent. Wherever you are, enjoy the cold moonlight. And there we go. Here's the M-class flare departing from sunspot 1410. It's growing in size and magnetic complexity as it approaches the sun's northwestern limb. The region is now crackling with solar flares, and we just had a eruption the other day. So there you go. This is why we have the 30% chance of a solar flare today of an M-class. Now, we're still dealing with the same sun sign, Aquarius. However, our moon sign has changed. Well, actually, it hasn't fully changed. Yeah. Our moon sign today is in Leo. Leo the lion. And then not only that, but it's a full moon in Leo the lion. So, moons, remember, energetically what they represent is our subconscious. So the subconscious energy right now, the full moon says our subconscious is shining bright. The energy there with our subconscious, there's a lot of energy available. And the energy coming to us and available to us is this fiery energy. So our subconscious has a bit of fiery element to it right now that's helping us to temper the water. That is the sun sign that's in our lives in this point in time. So those are the important things we look at. The elements in place, water and fire. Mix that together and, well, you can make all sorts of things depending on how you use those two elements together. And the moon, as I just said, it's 100% full. So enjoy the full moon tonight. And our dream spell for today. It's a white galactic dog, white resonant dog, excuse me. First day of the galactic moon. The white resonant dog is guided by the wind. The phrase for today is, I channel in order to love inspiring loyalty. I seal the process of heart with the resonant tone of attunement. I am guided by the power of spirit. And today again is a galactic activation portal day. On the Gregorian calendar, it is Tuesday, February 7th, 2012. There you have it for our opening introduction. I guess that's kind of the same. Opening introduction, redundant, right? Anyway, we're going to jump on to our first bit of news for today. And this was Ron Paul. He was recently, the other night, on Greta Van Susteren on Fox News. And yeah, we all know Ron Paul's been getting a hard time. They throw him some hard questions, but he's standing in there. And the longer he's in, the more respect they're giving him because he's not going away, and they're realizing there's something important. So let's check out, listen to what Dr. Paul has to say to Greta. This is another good interview, as always, with Dr. Paul. Here we go.
Ron Paul joined us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Nice to be with you.
Nice to have you, sir. Okay, let me give you not so much a hypothetical, but a fact pattern. Assume tonight you're the President of the United States and we have the following problems. In Syria, we have just closed down our embassy and there is a massacre by the Syrian government against its people. Number two, that Israel is talking about perhaps in the next 2 months taking some sort of action against Iran. And three, Egypt is holding a number of Americans, maybe trying 19 Americans. What are you going to be doing about all three of those problems tonight?
So you create problems over 40 years, and I have a minute to solve all this problem. No, I think it's our intervention over there that gets us into all this trouble, and that we ought to be minding our own business. We shouldn't be fighting wars that are undeclared. And if we want to get involved, take it. Well, let me finish.
All right.
I know we shouldn't be, and that's why, you know, this is why the best issue for me to get enthusiasm from young people and the people who care about what I'm doing, it's when I say, let's quit spending all our money overseas. We're going broke. In the last 10 years, we spent $4 trillion worth of debt fighting these wars. And all my argument is, declare the wars. If you want to go to war, declare the wars, fight them, win them, come home like we did in World War II. But to do endless wars, undeclared, go into Syria now, why do they get the authority? Obama went into Libya, and he'll probably go into Iran. The American people aren't ready for more wars. Besides, we can't afford it. So if you continue to do this, this will just drive us into bankruptcy. And quite frankly, this idea, giving me a little bit of credit about wanting to cut, but nobody will cut one nickel out of this militarism. And you have to cut. Not one Republican, not one Democrat, and all of Washington, all the candidates are cutting anything. They're always just cutting a little bit of the proposed increases. And you have to cut, and right now there's nobody willing to, and that's why we're going to go off a cliff. We're going to have an economic crisis a lot worse than 4 years ago, and it's going to involve too much entitlement spending and too much foreign adventurism trying to maintain an empire that we no longer can afford.
I don't think there's anybody in this country who's going to deny that you've been talking about cuts and that you're the most probably fiscal conservative of the four. I don't think anybody. But the question I'm sort of curious about, and what I got is that you would say no to going into Syria. I don't know that anyone's even suggesting going into Syria. But these are really hot
we're already
spots
there.
in the world. Well, what to the extent we are.
Like you said, we're already there.
Do you say come home? Do you say don't have anything to do with trying to get some sort of even diplomatic solution to Syria? Do you do that? Do you say anything to Egypt tonight about send those Americans home? Do you get involved with that? Do you have conversations with Egypt? I'm sort of just trying to understand what you'd be doing tonight with problems we already have.
Sure, you follow diplomacy. Kennedy did that with Khrushchev at the height of the Cold War when they were in Cuba. So, no, yes, you definitely do talk to people. But I'm looking at the foolhardiness of what we've been doing for 30 or 40 years. How many billions, tens, probably 40 to $50 billion we gave Egypt? Finally, the people got restless with the dictator we had propped up there. Now we have a government in Egypt that's anti-Israel. It doesn't help us, it bankrupts us, and it hurts Israel. And now the conditions are breaking down in that area. And now we're saying, well, we're going to put sanctions on Iran. Who's it going to hurt? Eastern Europe, our allies that we put into NATO, as well as Turkey. And it makes no sense whatsoever to think that we can continue to do this, spend this money, get involved. George Bush in 1970 ran on a program of a humble foreign policy, no nation building, and don't believe be the policeman of the world. And the Republicans elected him. The country loved him. But now I talk about it, and you think, oh, he's un-American. All I'm doing is talking about what George Bush talked about in the year 2000, what the founders talked about, and what the Constitution authorizes for us.
And I think that's sort of looking at sort of like how we got there or our problems. I'm trying to think how we get out of our problems and what do we do with the existing problems we have. Are you saying, and tell me if I'm wrong, that the sanctions, the President Obama just signed an executive order yesterday, but the sanctions against Iran is not something that you would endorse or encourage because of the financial ramifications?
Absolutely not. I voted against them, and I think they're terrible. I think it's going to hurt the people who are trying to overthrow Ahmadinejad. People, when they're attacked from the outside and made to hurt, they become more nationalistic. He defends it. Just think of 40 years of sanctions against Cuba. That's all backfired on us. And and the people who don't like my foreign policy, oh, he's an isolationist. People who put on sanctions are the isolationists. They don't want to talk to people.
What would you do about Iran and their quest for a nuclear weapon? Anything at all?
I'd quit trying to overthrow their government. We've been doing that since 1953, and they don't like us for us. And I think what we should do is let Israel deal with it. They have hundreds of nuclear missiles. They took care of Iraq's nuclear power plant back in the 80s. I defended them for it. But to restrain Israel and take over their sovereignty by giving them money, then they can't defend their borders and they can't develop their peace treaties. So we're really hurting Israel, inadvertently, of course, by doing this. But even Israel, the head of the Mossad, said, even if Iran gets a nuclear missile, it's not an existential threat to Israel. And there's a lot of discussion going on in Israel. This idea that we have to automatically go to war and start a war against Iran, It's crazy. I mean,
All right,
this is foolish. We're broke. We're broke. So a war with Iran makes no sense whatsoever, and that is what's coming if we don't change our way.
I know it's a horrible thing to give you a minute to answer a serious question, but what would you do about the 19 Americans who are facing trial in Egypt? What, if anything?
I would have done a long time ago. I wouldn't have propped up a dictator and then encouraged the overthrow. No, you got to do it. You got to work diplomatically and try to get them out of there the best you can. We have some responsibilities, but there's going to be a lot more of that because this is a consequence of a flawed policy, a reaction to us. It's blowback, and our people suffer the consequences from it.
Is it? I sort of think it's sort of like, you know, hard to sort of back out of situations too abruptly, but in terms of, you know, our foreign policy, do we ease out of it, or do we just one day all of a sudden wake up and back out of it, according to you?
That's the way we went in. We just marched in for no good reason to all these countries. We ought to just march home. Because it's not a legitimate war, and we don't have the money. And the longer we're there, the more people die, the more Americans die, and the more bankruptcy we have. We're not serving any purpose, and therefore, the sooner we get out, the better. The world would be better off. Our Americans would be better off. The military would be better off. Why am I getting twice as much donations than the president gets? I get 6 times as much from the military as all the other Republicans put together. That ought to send a message to people. Why does the military support Ron Paul? Because I have a sensible foreign policy, and they're on the front line. They're dying, and they don't even know what they're dying for.
Congressman, thank you, sir, and I hope you come back. There's so many interesting issues to talk about in this race. I hope you come back, sir.
Thank you.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk. We are here, UFO News. Thank you very much. Let's jump to our first story here. Comes to us from Huliq, HULIQ.com. UFO sightings at Stonefield Beach reveal strange box. Box is up and down the coast. All right, let's look what this says here. A dog's eyes leaving his face for the flutter of a moment made locals here at Stonefield Beach feel even more at ease late February 6th after dog barked and growled at a strange metal box that locals say suddenly appeared at dawn Monday. After a weekend filled with what locals call intense UFO sightings, these metal-looking boxes are about 20 inches in height and are a complete square of 5 foot by 5 foot and sunk deep into the surf, both here and at Stonefield Beach, a popular Oregon coast beach lookout for UFOs, and down the coast as far as we know, with yet more of these square metal containers that have no opening and are sealed all around, explains Oregon UFO watcher Errol, who lives nearby at Brays Point. In turn, these boxes are not movable, and they are solid and metallic and seem to have this keening wail coming from both boxes and the atmosphere around them, adds Errol, who's been called in to see what's up by locals, thinking it has something to do with UFOs, quipped the local senior named Doris, who said she also heard meowing wail come from the boxes Sunday evening. It's as if an alarm went off when a high, shrill, piercing, frightening ring caught our attention Sunday evening, explains Doris, a local senior who's retired and lives nearby Stonefield Beach. I know crazy things happen over at Stonefield, but when you walk down and you see the metal box sort of glowing out of the surf, it gets your attention real quick. In turn, local Oregon Forest Service fish biologists who've been called in to help explain what has now been revealed as a series of metal boxes buried into the surf up and down the Oregon coast and possibly as far as down the coast as Northern California is more than enough to catch one's attention, added Doris, in trying to explain what's not explainable. What is known is a sustained whine of something akin to an ambulance siren awoke locals near Stonefield Beach and the other areas of Oregon coast Sunday evening, January 5th, beginning at approximately 4 a.m. At the same time, Doris said this area around Stonefield Beach is a very quiet place where nothing but seagulls and Pacific waves to break the quiet. You can see it's more of a story. All of our stories are available at firstcontactradio.com. On the right-hand side, we got the link for UFO News. It's all the stories today, yesterday, and for months past, so check it out. Our next story comes to us from UFO Sightings 2012.com. This is a sighting that took place on the 5th in Illinois. I recorded this on my BlackBerry. We seen these UFOs around 7:44 p.m. on the 5th, a couple of miles outside Gardner. I captured 3 of them. 2 did not show up on the camera for whatever reason. 3 of them would get very bright colors of red, white, and green for a couple of seconds, then dim out. The 3 that were there stayed around 10 minutes before I started recording. There were 6 of them. They would move horizontal for a couple of seconds, stay stationary, and move around again and make a perfect triangle. The last minute of them there being one by one, they dim out and they had flashing red lights on them. The bottom of the UFOs had a white light that stayed on. They disappeared at that time. I created the video with the YouTube video editor. Alright, let's take a look at this here to see what was seen. Alright, we're not seeing anything here. Alright, well, I'm not seeing anything there. You got the report, though. There's another longer one of a compilation of videos, but check this one out yourself, see what you think. Maybe by enlarging it, you'll see a little better. Alright, coming to us from scottwaring.blogspot.com. UFO cloaked in cloud over Lisbon Airport. February 4th. These are some photos we have here. Here's the area in question. Lisbon, Portugal. This is the second report for Portugal about this UFO cloud. There must be a same UFO as the Aureas, because this is only 20 kilometers from the city of Aureas. Same day sighting. This time it's over Lisbon Airport. You think these are only clouds? As many of you already know, back in September 1957, a soldier took photos of a metal ring UFO over Military Airport, and as he was taking photos, the ring was making a white cloud around it until it was fully hidden from the camera. So here we go. There's the cloud there. Alright. So quite possibly a UFO in that cloud right there. Not fooling anybody. Alright, just one single cloud. Very good. Check out that story. Here's, if you want to read a little bit more about the previous event from 1957. Here's images of those clouds back then. Alright, so it's been going on for a while that UFOs do cloak themselves in the clouds. Now, next story. This is newly released a video of giant UFO over Taiwan. January. I know I reported on this sighting last month. However, this updated post is a newly released video of a UFO in the cloud. It has never been seen before, and it is much higher detail than the one I reported last month. I say this is a UFO due to the old O'Hare Airport incident where hundreds of eyewitnesses saw a gray UFO hover for 15 minutes, then suddenly take off as it passed through a cloud and left a hole, meaning its propulsion system creates holes in clouds. The hole over O'Hare was there 15 minutes. Take a look at this video from Taiwan. See what you think. Alright, here we go. We're going to zip through this as it goes along. Alright. Pretty interesting looking UFO. Now, this was over Taiwan, and definitely looks like, well, this doesn't look normal. So something obviously manufactured this UFO. Is it a UFO flying up into the clouds? Is it something coming down? Whatever the case, most fascinating indeed. These are some good shots. Alright. Very good. And last but not least, glowing orbs divide into 2. Baltimore, Maryland, U.S. Alright, here we go. This is what we're going to be looking at. Alright, see the images right here. Watch as these glowing orbs divide themselves into 2. Yes, they do that. One orb can produce a dozen or more in just a few minutes. Alright, let's check this out. It's from Truth Helix 108. Alright, moving right along here, we have... There it is, okay. Video's in question. Alright. Now look, it's dividing. I think we're going to be seeing it dividing again from what it says. Look how they're all coming together there. Pretty interesting sighting, huh? Okay. Yep, you see them appear and disappear. Now there's only one. Alright. Very interesting indeed, dividing UFOs. Alright, so there you go. That's our UFO news report for today. Just keep in mind, when we see these glowing orbs and stuff in the sky, they could be exactly what is being seen, but Project Bluebeam is also out there. Holographic equipment, perhaps making some holographic images in the sky. There is a lot of chemtrails and cloud seeding which takes place, which does coincide with the way that Project Bluebeam works. So that is not, it's not out of the realm of possibility. So we always want to be smart, be skeptical, and make sure that what we're looking at is what we're looking at and not just making something up. All right? There you have the UFO news for today. I'm going to jump away to a song. I'll be back momentarily. Stay tuned.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of
9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. The evidence is overwhelming. Step past your fear, take a look. Illuminati lies keep growing, but they're losing from your eyes. And wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What would our founding fathers say if they were alive today? Must be turning in their graves. Redcoats are coming, big brother's watching. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What if by land and two if by sea? And I on the opposite shore will be ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Patriots arise. It's time to demand the truth.
All right, continuing on. Our next story takes us to the intelhub.com. Lost world reached 20 million year old Arctic lake drilled. Antarctic lake, excuse me. This is out of Russia today. After 30 years spent drilling through a 4-kilometer thick ice crust, researchers have finally broken through a unique subglacial lake. Scientists are set to reveal its 20 million year old secrets and imitate a quest to discover ET life. The Vostok project breathes an air of mystery and operates at the frontiers of human knowledge. The lake, is one of the major discoveries in modern geography. Drilling operations at such depths are unprecedented. Never before has a geological project required such subtle technologies. The main inspiration for the project, the Russian scientist who posited the lake's existence, died just 6 months before the moment of contact with the lake's surface. Now, the whole world is looking to Lake Vostok for crucial data which might help to predict climate change. Yesterday on Sunday, our scientists at the Vostok Polar Station in Antarctic completed drilling at depths of 3,768 meters and reached the surface of the subglacial lake, RIA Novostat reported, quoting an unnamed Russian scientist. Meanwhile, a TASS news agency said the scientists still have a few meters to go. Lake Vostok is a unique enclosed ecosystem hidden under some 4 kilometers of ice. Its water has been isolated from the atmosphere and therefore any contact with the outside world since man existed. The key question for scientists is, could the lake harbor life? There's an image of what's going on over there. And they'll go into this lake way down here. So pretty interesting how they can just dig through all of this ice and get all the way down there. If some primitive bacteria, even more complex life forms, are found to have survived the isolation, it could offer an earth-shattering insight to our planet's past. But if the lake proves to be a closed system devoid of any life, it would offer scientists a chance to test their theories on how to search for extraterrestrial life on future space trips. Conditions in the lake are often described as alien, as they resemble lakes on Jupiter's moon, Europa. Alright, here's an image of what's going on there. And to finish up a little more on this story, I'm going to jump over here. This is RT and a report on the very same issue. See what's going on here. Alright, you can see the equipment that they're using and see how they're working. It's a very good footage. Nice and cold out there, huh? Alright, so that's a little bit so you can see what's going on out there in Antarctica. Very good. Now, our next story is going to take us back over to Ron Paul. This is part of his Texas Straight Talk. And do we trust the government or do we not? That is the question. Let's see what Dr. Paul has to say in this regard.
With your weekly update for February 6th. Well, much has been made recently of the President's unconstitutional appointment of Richard Cordray to be Director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB. Lost in the hubbub has been any discussion of the unconstitutionality of or the need for the CFPB itself. Proponents of the CFPB claim that this new bureaucracy will help consumers by protecting them from fraudulent activity. In reality, it will only expose consumers to more financial harm. Housed within the unconstitutional Federal Reserve and funded not through congressional appropriations, but through the Federal Reserve's interest revenue off the trillions of dollars of U.S. government debt it holds, the structure of the CFPB ensures that it is run by unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats with no effective oversight from Congress. Given broad powers to regulate the activities not only of banks but also of any other entity which the government deems offers a financial product, there is almost no limit to the scope of financial activity which the CFPB can oversee. Giving impetus to the CFPB's creation was the poor reputation of Wall Street banks and financial firms that developed as a result of the financial crisis. Banks which received trillions of dollars of taxpayers-funded bailouts turned around and shafted their customers by foreclosing on homes, raising credit card interest rates, and introducing numerous new fees. But rather than keeping Wall Street in check, as its proponents allege, the CFPB will end up placing further restrictions on the ability of Main Street Americans to engage in productive financial endeavors. Current law already allows only the richest Americans to invest in potentially lucrative ventures such as hedge funds because such investments are deemed to be too risky for the average American to invest in. The government, in its paternalistic wisdom, treats American investors as too stupid to know what to do with their money and protects them, supposedly, by keeping them poorer than they otherwise would be. We can expect even more of this once the CFPB is running in full stride. The CFPB will further harm consumers by encouraging them to use only financial products which have received the Bureau's approval. Many consumers will assume that these products are safe and will fail to engage in their own due diligence with predictably unfortunate results. We have seen this with the stock markets in the cases of Bernie Madoff and Alan Stanford, where investors trusted the SEC to prevent fraud ended up suffering huge losses. Social Security is a similar case in which millions of people place their trust in the government to take care of them in their old age. The inability of Social Security to pay its future obligations is well understood but ignored, and millions of Americans will likely once again learn the hard way that the government cannot be taken at its word. Thanks for calling this update. A new update is placed on this number, 888-322-1414, every Monday. The written text can be found on my website, www.house.gov/Paul, under the heading Texas Straight Talk. Thanks for calling.
Going to continue on. We got one more here on Dr. Paul. For those of you who might be new to First Contact Radio, Ron Paul is our candidate. We support him. We don't care about the other ones, so we're really not going to tell you too much about the other ones. Why? Because they're all saying the same thing. Go fight war. More blood, more war. More blood, more war. That's what they want. Dr. Paul, he's the only sensible one in the bunch, talking about the Constitution. You know, the thing that the Founding Fathers put in place. Very important document. We should listen. We shouldn't trample all over that. And individuals, people watching the mainstream news, well, they've been convinced that these are things that should be done. No. No trampling should occur. Trampling is not part of the process of the Constitution. Only the mainstream news leads you to believe that. You know, there's some polls out that say those who watch the mainstream news, especially Fox, are less informed about what's really going on in the world. That's true. You can look it up. Just do some search and find out. So next time you watch Fox News, know that they're lying to you. As a matter of fact, if you want to watch something real interesting, go to YouTube and look up Outfoxed. There's a good show. It's like hour and 20 minutes, and it really is a good show. It's got all kind of reporters, former reporters from Fox, on-air personalities talking about their experience over there, so you can come to understand how Fox is, well, they're outfoxing you and have been lying to you for a long, long time. Hopefully that will all change. Hopefully the world is going to wake up and see Dr. Paul, what he's all about. And coming home from these wars is the only thing that makes sense. Let's listen up to this piece here.
While Ron Paul was speaking, Steve Kornacki, you said he's been offering those remarks for a long time. I'm sorry to pull this out of the locker room. And Michael Steele said, yes, but people are now listening.
Yeah, they are. And it's resonating with a lot of folks. In tough economic times, what he's saying makes a lot of sense. And what's interesting is he's been saying it, as Steve noted, for a very, very long time. And I took away something that was very significant, though. He's talking about cutting $1 trillion out of the budget in 1 year. And you know the old Washington trick, we do it over 10 years. So we like it's $100 billion a year for 10 years. That's nothing. What he's talking about is a fundamental change in the way the government manages its money. And that resonates with a lot of voters out there. And I've said for a long time, and you may disagree with me a little bit on this, I think there's a synergy that Ron Paul has that captures that Tea Party and that Occupy Wall Street-esque feel
that's true.
On the economic side, which is why you see those 20-something-year-olds galvanizing 1,000 college-plus age kids in an auditorium on a Saturday night. Come on.
That's a really important point. I mean, Ron Paul seems to be the only Republican candidate who's really made a play for the youth vote. I mean, he's really done well in Iowa and New Hampshire, for example, among youth voters. So I've been curious to see, in terms of Nevada, how that helps him in terms of his goal of doing a little bit better in the caucus. You know, the other thing is, in the last election cycle, the Republicans really didn't make the effort to go after the youth vote because there was such the assumption that President Obama would get the youth vote. But what Pew is reporting is that in the course of the last 4 years, young voters, millennials in particular, are becoming more frustrated about the role of government and whether or not. And so I think, you know, Ron Paul's message really resonates. They don't see government working as much as they used to be the most sort of optimistic about.
It sounds like the speech you say he's been delivering a long time. He's going to keep delivering for a long time.
Well, yeah, and I think it illustrates the basic nature of his campaign. In Florida, the most interesting thing to me in the exit poll about Ron Paul was this. They asked people, did you make up your mind in 2011 or in the month of January? Among the people who decided in the month of January, just 3% went for Ron Paul. All of his voters have been with him because they've heard the speech, and the speech resonates with them. And the speech is not strategic in any way. He's not jabbing his opponents. He's not making a pitch for local votes. You know, he is delivering a consistent. It's more of a lecture than a speech. And if he's talking your language, you are going to be with this guy from the beginning to the end. But he's not.
All right. And that's true. Ron Paul is consistent. That's the thing about him. You know, it's not like he's getting up there saying anything new, and that's what they're confirming. They're finally realizing. He says the same thing. He's not flip-flopping. That's what they expect from a politician. Romney, what's the answer to this? Oh, it's blue. Well, okay, what is it now? Now it's green. He doesn't know. He flip-flops back and forth. Gingrich is just one of the old boys. You know, it's nothing new. Ron Paul has been speaking the same message over and over and over. That's why if you go and listen to Ron Paul's talks from one talk to the next and over the years, it's the same thing he's saying. So he's not changing his message. He's consistent, and that is what is important. Consistency is important. All right. Now, here's something that we've all been warned about, and it's coming through. FBI warns of threat from anti-government extremists. Now let's see who's on this list. Anti-government extremists opposed to taxes and regulations pose a growing threat to local law enforcement officers in the United States, the FBI warned on Monday. These extremists, something known as sovereign citizens, believe that they can live outside any type of government authority. FBI agent says at a news conference, the extremists may refuse to pay taxes, defy government bank regulations, and believe the United States went bankrupt before going off the standard. Routine encounters with police can turn violent at the drop of the hat, said Stuart MacArthur, Deputy Assistant Director at FBI's Counterterrorism Division. We thought it was important to increase the visibility of the threat with state and local law enforcement. All right, let me weigh in on this issue here. Sovereign status, that means status of the king. Sovereign, like the king, all the rights of the king. Therefore, Americans are all sovereign citizens. That is, by nature. However, there was a trick played on the American people, and the trick ended up in Americans receiving a Social Security number. That Social Security number took you from being a member of the United States of America, and it made you part of the corporate United States of America. You're a franchise. That's why when you send in your taxes every year, you send them to the Franchise Tax Board, because you are a franchisee of the corporation of the United States. And your franchise number? Well, that's your Social Security number. The moment you got that, the moment you were in the franchise, you are now a franchise. And your rights with the franchise, that's why you get to pay taxes, and you get to do all the fun things like that. However, it's not how it was set up. Founding Fathers didn't set it up. Founding Fathers set it up so everyone was a sovereign citizen. Now, because of this situation and how people were scammed with the Social Security number and the 14th Amendment, and it was all during that same time when all this was put in place. Because of the big scam, there's still a loophole, and people are able to get out of the system, and they do, and they have. Hundreds of thousands of them, probably millions by now, all across the country, are stepping out of the system. They don't have a Social Security number anymore, and is that illegal? No. But for those who are the sheeple out there that don't understand, they're confused. They don't know what to do when somebody doesn't have a Social Security number. When you're driving a car, you don't need to have a driver's license because the driver's license only applies to the Social Security number and that game that is being played. If you are out of that system, you don't need to have one to drive because it's not the same sort of understanding. Not the same sort of understanding. And so I'm sure that the police are having all sorts of problems with this because they don't understand really what's going on. Now, if the police understand the law, great. But unfortunately, the police seem to be getting dumber and dumber and dumber as the years go by. They're less informed about what the law is, and the more that they do not know the law, the more that they're enforcing law that doesn't make sense or is infringing on other people's rights. So, just to know, the FBI now is saying that those who are trying to claim and are claiming themselves as sovereign citizens, the way the founding fathers set it up to be, anyone who's claiming that, the FBI is now saying are anti-government extremists. Anti-government extremists for doing what the founding fathers would have you do. It's not anti-government. It's true constitutionalism. That's what that is. And the FBI doesn't like that because they are one of the organizations who does not like the Constitution because it limits them and their powers. Moving right along. All right, we haven't heard from Charlie in a while, so this is Charlie McGrath and his latest bit of information coming to you from Wide Awake News. Let's check it out.
My name is Charlie McGrath. I'm the founder of WideAwakeNews.com and a host on the Rinse Radio Network. Altered reality is what's being sold to the people of this country. An altered state of reality that isn't based on what's happening on Main Street. It's based on serving a political agenda. It's based on serving the interest of the people that Washington, D.C. truly represents, which is special financial interest in New York and the City of London. We saw some of this altered reality released last week with an 8.3% unemployment number. We were told 440,000 jobs were created in the last 2 months. Now, in an altered state of reality, the sales job that we've seen go on, nobody's questioning this in the mainstream media. Mainly, my opinion is because a handful of corporations get to control 90% of the news that's disseminated to the people of the nation. The fact is, nobody questioned this, just like nobody questioned how the Super Bowl was able to lure companies like General Electric, Chevy, and Chrysler, companies bailed out to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars into spending $7 million a minute to get advertising during that same Super Bowl. Nobody questions this in the altered state of reality. Main Street continues to suffer. Wall Street continues to prosper. Everything is as it should be according to the power elite of this country. But if we look a little bit below the surface, which the mainstream media refuses to do, we find out that it isn't this altered reality that we live in. It's more of a shocking reality that Main Street has to endure. The fact is, Charles Biederman, founder of Trim Tabs, studied unemployment data and employment data for over the last 14 years. He doesn't go by some magic formula a government accountant uses, a government economist uses, a birth-death model creating jobs out of thin air, or seasonally adjusting 400,000 jobs into existence. He looks at tax receipts because you don't create jobs without creating an increase in tax revenue. And in fact, recently, tax revenue just turned negative, meaning we're going downhill. So it coincides with Biederman's data that shows in the last 2 months, we've not only not created 440,000 jobs, we've lost 2.9 million jobs. So government accountants, government economists managed to birth-death model, managed to seasonally adjust a swing of 3.3 million jobs. So how accurate are these government economists? Well, if we look at the CBO and use them as an example, this group that's supposed to be nonpartisan, in 2001, they projected forward to 2011. And they projected that the U.S. indebtedness would be negative $2.43 trillion. The private debt to GDP ratio would be 4.8%, and in fact, would have a surplus of $889 billion with a GDP of $16.9 trillion. Now, the CBO economists, they only missed it by $17.5 trillion. So who are these people serving? Who are these economists and governments serving? Well, according to Lan Pham, Wall Street is who's served. She's a former CBO economist who, after 2 months and one report that countered the Wall Street paid CBO advisor for Morgan Stanley, countered his report, a report that painted this rosy outlook and a more Wall Street favorable report. Hers countered it, she was let go. So it doesn't matter what happens in reality. It doesn't matter what shocking reality Main Street lives in, because in altered reality, everything is geared for the financial super elite, of which you and I and the rest of the people of this country and the world for that matter are not part of. They are the uber elite 99%. We are the ever-expanding lower class, the ever-expanding have-nots. And if we continue on this path, we will be the ever-expanding serfdom class. Stories are attached. That's all I got.
All right, thanks to Charlie for that report there. Next up, all right, this is some good news here. Definitely some good news. So I told you, read the report the other day that the Senate was going to vote on a bill. Well, Senate passes bill allowing airports to evict TSA screeners. Hallelujah. Get the perverts out of the airports. Legislation could lead to despised federal agency being marginalized from aviation security. All right, the Senate has passed legislation that includes a provision allowing airports to replace TSA screeners with private security. Although opening the door for a wholly loathed federal agency to be marginalized from aviation security altogether. The bill was primarily concerned with how the Federal Aviation Authority would be funded for the next 4 years, but also included measures that would force the TSA to reconsider applications from airports to replace TSA workers with their own privately held screeners. Security companies would have an easier time winning contracts to operate airport checkpoints, reports Businessweek. Following a massive nationwide backlash against the TSA's invasive groping policies and its use of radiation-firing naked body scanners linked by many prestigious health bodies to cancer, an increasing number of airports attempted to take responsibility for their own screening procedures by replacing TSA workers with privately hired personnel. However, in January 2011, when the number of airports attempting to opt out of the TSA had risen to 16, TSA head John Pistole put a freeze on the process, refusing to consider new applications from airports. The newly approved legislation would require the TSA to reconsider applications for private screeners that it had rejected. Should airports choose to replace TSA screeners with their own private security, it would not only mean the screeners would be better trained and more responsible for their actions, alleviating the problems of thefts and abuse by TSA workers, but it will also create tens of thousands of much-needed jobs for the private sectors. Let me see read a little more. Some airport executives argue that the contract security personnel are more courteous than government workers. It was felt that a private contractor would provide friendlier customer service to the traveling public, the head of Roswell, New Mexico Airport wrote to Congress. A November 2010 poll found that TSA enhanced pat-downs, some of which include touching genitalia, angered 57% of regular adult flyers. West Yellowstone Airport in Montana had already replaced its TSA screeners with private security. Burt Mooney Airport is also in Montana, and Orlando Sanford International Airport in Florida will also be able to have their rejected applications to evict TSA reconsidered under the new law. Resentment towards TSA has raged over the last 2 years among Americans, primarily as a result of rampant criminality in which TSA workers habitually engage. The latest example concerns TSA agent Alexandra Schmidt, who stole $5,000 in cash from her passenger's jacket as he was going through security at JFK. The TSA's habit of never admitting wrongdoing, even when they are caught, has also riled the traveling public. Even when the agency was forced to apologize for strip-searching 2 women in their 80s just before Christmas, the TSA claimed its agents had merely violated protocol when in fact they had sexually molested the women by forcing them to undress. Good news. Get those TSA perverts out of the airports, and life will be much better for those flying. All right, last story here comes to us from RT, and it has to do with Occupation DC. Here we go.
Let go!
Move back were the words echoed by D.C. Park Police on Saturday as they finally advanced on the occupied D.C. encampment. Now, it had been almost a week since word was let out that the occupied branches in D.C. at McPherson Square and Freedom Plaza were going to be evicted. An early Saturday morning, cops got the word that February 4th would be the day. Now, starting as early as 5 a.m., the police came through the camp explaining that the tent of dreams that had been erected over the statue at McPherson Square had to be taken down. I was there for part of the morning and early afternoon on Saturday. Saw what began as a pretty peaceful calm environment where police slowly began to overtake one part of the park after another. But then they started to remove the tents in an effort to enforce the new policy of no enclosed tents on the park's premises. Many of the occupiers fled to one of the quadrants in the park, which held their makeshift library. And that's when police began being more aggressive.
Hey, sit down. You sit or going? Sit or going? Turn and move. Turn and move. Let go of it.
Now, the police seem to use this tactic, push more a few times on Saturday, and the corralling of the protesters led to spats of violence, one of which involved demonstrators and cops fighting over a barrier fence. Well, that video was filmed by RT's Andrew Blake, and it shows the uniformed aggression by cops towards occupiers and the press, oftentimes not differentiating between the two. In fact, photojournalist Jerry Nelson was amongst the 11 people that were arrested that day for allegedly disobeying orders and assaulting police officers. Now, several reports confirm that the violence quickly subsided and the protesters agreed to leave the camp, which has been cleared of their tents and bedding by Saturday afternoon. By the evening, sanitation workers and a few police officers were combing through any of the last belongings that were left in McPherson with forklifts and garbage trucks. And any tent with belongings left inside was confiscated and swept up, and police enforced the policy for the rest of the day, with a truck carrying an infrared scanner to ensure that nobody sleeps there. Now, if you remember, the Occupy encampment drew the attention of Congress when Republican Darrell Issa called on the members of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee to tackle the very pressing issue of the parks becoming unsanitary and infested with rodents. So it was a rare move, considering Congress doesn't usually get involved in local issues, and many saw this call for eviction as one that was politically motivated by congressional conservatives. Now, Saturday's eviction was the first time that people were actually removed from the park, which has been considered one of the longest-standing Occupy camps. This one stood for 129 days. And even though park police came through and removed many people's personal belongings, some occupiers were already back on Sunday. Others stayed at the Freedom Plaza encampment. Regardless, demonstrators have vowed to return, saying that you can't evict an idea whose time has come. Meanwhile, the Freedom Plaza camp, which is subject to the same no-tent rules, has been left untouched this weekend. And as of right now, we're not sure if they're going to face park police in the near future or if they'll be allowed to continue their protest.
All right. Well, this is kind of a no-win situation for the police because the numbers of people will continue to grow. And the police force, well, they're not growing as fast as the people. So the police better get ready for the battle because it's going to go on. And the only thing that they can do is you got to get on the right side. Quit protecting the criminals. You're worried about the rodents, the rats, and things like that in the park? How about the cockroaches in the White House? Those are the things that need to be gotten rid of. The cockroaches in Congress, let's get rid of those. Deal with those problems first. And policemen, quit defending the criminals. You're defending criminals, man. If you really knew what you were doing, you'd probably slap yourself upside the head. So pull your heads out of your backside and get with the program and quit defending the criminals, because I bet if you look in the mirror, you don't think of yourself as a criminal, so don't defend them. How about that? That kind of makes a little sense, doesn't it? All right. Time for the meditation. So let's let me set things up here. All right, I want you to close your eyes and relax. Close your eyes and relax. All right, I would like you to imagine that you are standing on the edge of a cliff, and you're looking over, and you have a view of the entire valley below. And below you see life, you see people moving about, and it seems so chaotic, the way everything moves. However, as you watch closer, in the midst of the chaos, you see that there is something a bit more organized. Organized confusion. And as you begin to understand the process of organization, you realize it is because we live on a planet filled with those who are organized people. People just like you that want life to run smoother and in an organized manner. People like you that want life to be peaceful, free from doubts and fears. And as you see all the people walking down, imagine sending some positive energy down to everyone walking. Imagine that the chaos that exists dissipates, and the people are able to move around with even more clarity than before, because they don't have to deal with the chaos. They can get right to the problems at hand and the solutions required. Let's imagine that all of our chakras are activated now. These are the energy centers of our body, and the more that we're able to understand and utilize the energy that's available to us, the more effective we can be in life. The 7 chakras are down the middle of your spine. First one is at the bottom. Imagine the color red, drawing the energy from the earth. This first chakra, the root chakra, is the primal energy. And allow the energy from there, imagine the red, and allow that energy to raise up to the chakra above it. Imagine the color orange. Orange at the second chakra, right around the belly button. And then the energy raises up higher just below the rib cage. And imagine the color yellow. This is the chakra of our intellectual body. Raise the energy up higher to the heart space. Imagine the color green for the heart chakra. And then up higher to the throat, imagine the color blue. From the blue throat chakra of communication up between the 2 eyes, 2 eyebrows, imagine the color violet. Your third eye is how you're able to see through dimensions of space and time. And finally, to the crown chakra, the top of your head, imagine the color indigo, and the light continues on up into the cosmos. And there you are, connected above and below. Above and below. Now, as you're feeling all of this connection of energy, feel yourself part of the oneness of the universe, of all that is. Allow this energy to overflow. And as it overflows, look at the spiritual armor. Look at the line of light around your body. This is the spiritual armor. You can activate this at any time. Simply imagine. And it's no more difficult than that. Now, from the heart chakra, send out love all around the planet. To each and every individual. And as we're sending out love, let's make that our mantra for the day. Just to keep sending love all around. And with that, we'll bring our energy and attention back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. And there you have it. That's our prayer, our show. Just a little quiet moment of peacefulness at the end of every show. You know, no matter how many problems there are in the world, and there's always problems, we can rise above these problems. That's part of the purpose, to learn how to rise above the problems, that we become better and better at doing so. We've been here on this planet for a long time, overcoming problems for a long time. We're pretty good at it. We're pretty good at it. And all we have to do is pay attention to what we're doing and not allow voices of doubt or fear, or those who are of the government trying to suppress you, we don't have to listen to those voices keeping us down. We can step beyond all of that to be the problem solvers that we are. That's it. That's the show for today. I'll be back tomorrow with more news and information. You have a great day. Be safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.